give us a thumbs up.
No, I didn't see
Oh, it is set.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to our February 24th, 2016 regular board meeting of the Pullman School District. The first item on our agenda is the flag salute, so if everyone please join us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to be made to our agenda this evening?
Just want to add an item to our closed session tonight, collective bargaining.
Okay.
update.
We'll add a collective bargaining update to our executive or closed session this evening.
That I will move that we approve the agenda as presented, as revised this evening.
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as revised. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda as revised, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to the section of our agenda for visitors, and that's the part of the agenda that is for anyone wishing to speak before the board, either as an individual or a member of a group. Visitors addressing the board are asked to go to the microphone, state their name and address prior to presenting their information, and visitors are asked to limit their remarks to 3 minutes. The board will listen but not discuss the topic at this time. The board may consider moving that topic to a future meeting date as a discussion item. So is there anyone that would like to speak before the board as a visitor this evening? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody move, so we will move on to item number 5 on our agenda, which is reports, correspondence, and programs. And the first item on that is the Pullman High School ASB report. And this evening we have Amy Allen and Ivy Dembuki. If you'd come forward to our microphone, we'd appreciate it.
Good evening. Thank you for having us tonight. My name is Amy Allen.
And I'm Ivy Dumbuki.
And for our update this evening, we'll talk about our event that we had previously this month, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? It was a successful event, and we raised about $800, and we definitely want to do this event again in the future with some minor changes. Our running total for Brick is about $1,500, and so we're planning more fundraising events for the future.
And upcoming, we're planning a talent show, and auditions are March 1st after school, from 3 to 5, and March 2nd during lunch and after school. And all the proceeds will go towards Brick for Brick.
Thank you. That's all.
That's all? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
How would the general public donate toward the Brick to Brick fund? Is there a contact person?
Yeah, the best person to contact is Miss Gould. Right now, we don't have a super good way for that to happen, but we will plan on putting jars around at local businesses
Okay,
to make it easier for
good,
people.
good. Thank you. If you
Thank
wouldn't
you.
mind, we could shake your hands if you come by.
You know what, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna film that well.
Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Great. Great project and great success.
Very good. We always enjoy hearing what's happening at the school district and from our students, so very nice. That brings us to the next item on our agenda, which are board reports, and we'll start down here at my left. Susan Weed.
No report this evening.
Okay. Dr. Everman, do you have a report for us?
Just a commendation for the Lincoln Middle School. Cameron Grow headed up the awards evening last night and did a nice job. The commons area there in Lincoln Middle School is definitely getting small. I mean, that place was full, and that was only 6th grade, so that there was no way you could get parents from all 3 grades in that commons area. So it's just really tight. So you can see how we're growing. I mean, it's just, on one hand, it's very encouraging, but on the other hand, it's very realistic that we're growing,
Yes.
need more space. So,
Anything else?
no,
Okay, thank you, Jim, for that report. Dr. Montrotola, do you have a report?
No report.
Okay, and I don't have one either, so we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Sturm?
Thank you. We have bid opening tomorrow for the Jefferson Elementary classroom expansion project. And so we're anxious and looking forward to a good outcome for that. As you know, that's for adding 4 classrooms to Jefferson Elementary School. Pullman High School, I sent you an observation report today. Things are progressing. Nothing, well, it's always exciting and fun to watch. You know, we're getting really close to the auditorium being completed and turned over. So I sent Joe an email, I don't know, yesterday or to start thinking about an event that we could bring public in and show that space off. I know it's a space that the community will be interested in and hopefully be able to make use of it in addition to the school using it. So we'll do that sometime, hopefully in March. And then just to piggyback on the comment that Jim made about Lincoln Middle School, I contacted NAC Architects because they designed that building and asked them to give us a bid on studying so we at least know, as we're planning down the future, what it would take to add some classrooms to that. I think that, I don't know this for sure, but I suspect that some core facilities would have to be also adjusted because, as you mentioned, the Commons is already at capacity with that school. So we'll get going on that and have them at least take a look and give us some ideas on what could be done on that site. With that, I think we have a Title IX report from, not a Title IX report. It's in the agenda as a Title IX report, but it's not a Title IX report. It's a student survey, student interest survey. Is that right? Chris Franklin and Justin Polstead.
So in your meeting notes there, every 3 years we are required as a school district to do an athletics and activities interest survey, and so this is our year. Last time we did it was 2012, 2013. So this is our year that we did that. So Justin and I kind of came together and did an online survey for that, and we'll kind of touch bases with that. So we used a Google survey, and since all of our students log in with Google accounts, it was easy for us to do, very simple and things like that. So students could only do the survey one time, and using their school login and everything, and all the results were tabulated, and we have that on our documents to be able to be saved. So, did you want to?
Yeah, and with that, you know, last time we did this 3 years ago, we went through a company, was it
Life Track Services.
Life Track Services. Cost us about almost $1,600. And this go around, Chris did this all on his own and came up with this program and was in charge of nothing. Our teachers were really, at the middle school, were really excited about it because it was all online. We got to get on the computer. Kids in science class would come in and take it. It took about 5 minutes. They'd log into their Google account, take it, and it's done. Really quick and easy for us to get results back. It was a great process for us. And so at Lincoln we did grades 6 through 8. Like I mentioned, we did the surveys in our science classes.
At the high school, because we needed only 9th, 10th, and 11th graders, unlike the middle school needed their whole entire school, we chose to do it. We did it with all of our 9th graders in our health and fitness classes. We did it through our 10th graders in their biology classes and our 11th graders in their U.S. history class. So it actually worked out really nice because all of those kids had that opportunity to do that. So total participation, we'll kind of go with that. Before we go there, and Justin and I looked at the data from the last time. The last time we did this survey, For the high school, we had 329 participants, and the middle school had about 349.
Yeah, I think that's about right. And I know our numbers have obviously grown in the district, as we were just mentioning, but I went back and looked at percentages. We had about 68% last time, and we were well over 80% this time. So more kids participated in the survey.
That's great.
So, and just with kind of presenting, we kind of broke it down in the pie chart there for how many of our students participated in the survey. So at Lincoln Middle School, they had 509. They beat us. We only had 500, so I guess that was a good thing. So you can see up there in the data there, and we can go with that. So in your board packet, you do have this presentation as well. So any questions on that before we kind of move on with that? So gender participation, one of the things that we did on this survey, and it's the same as the OSBI survey, is we just make sure that the kids tell us who are they, male or female. So out of 509,
We were right. Just
yeah,
about
50-50 there.
50, yeah.
So the next question that we asked the kids, do you participate in sports at your school? So I'll let Justin talk about the Lincoln Middle School data.
Yeah, as you can see, it's right on about 50-50 again. And we'll get into the next slides. We'll discuss kind of reasons for that, and we kind of dig a little deeper.
And at the high school, we had about 49% say no, a little over 50% say yes. So that's a great opportunity for our school. Is over 50% of our 9th, 10th, and 11th graders are participating in sports of some sort with that. And so at the middle school.
So the middle school, one of the first questions was what sports did you play? And as you can see, basketball is obviously high. I think a part of that is it was during basketball season, and so the boys had just come off of playing basketball. The girls were right in the middle of their season, and I think part of that was because I'm looking at tennis right there, it shows only 18. I looked at our rosters, we had well over 40 kids, and so some students might have clicked their one sport that they were in currently, and so those are skewed a little bit, but obviously basketball was the highest because we're offering that to both boys and girls.
And at the high school, you can see a wide variety there. From soccer, we had 42 people. Now, keep in mind the soccer, the survey didn't ask for boys versus girls, so it was just soccer. Swimming, 24. Same with, we have male and female swimming. Football, 36. So the numbers are a little skewed, and as we go through the survey, maybe kids didn't know that they could select multiple sports, and that's something that we could add to the survey next time to make sure that they can select all that apply, and so that we can have a better data for that as well. So obviously track with the highest was 73, and since we had our first track meeting yesterday, we did have 77 students say that they're going to participate, so that's fairly accurate there. But some of the other numbers are a little skewed for that as well. But that's something that we can kind of go back and get fixed for the next year. So the other question that we're required to ask is that if you don't play a sport, why not? So at Lincoln Middle School.
At Lincoln, obviously the top two, the other is difficult because that's not giving us a real clear answer, but you see the bottom two there. A quarter of our kids are just right now saying not interested in playing the sports that are offered, and so as you'll see in the coming slides, we're trying to find out what is it that they're interested in, what is it, so we can kind of tap into that.
And then for the high school, again, other is a big one that we could go on about that one. Not interested in playing sports was the biggest total getter for us. We do have a lot of students involved in pep band. We have a lot of different activities that kids are involved in, and sports might not be right up to that alley there. Not interested in playing sports offered at our school, and we'll talk about some of those that are there as well. So.
On this next slide here, at Lincoln we're pretty split on playing sports outside of school. I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, and at the high school, playing outside sports program, some do, so 31%, but majority of our kids either play sports here or they're not playing sports outside, you know, things like that.
For Lincoln, you know, the top, obviously you can see there that's offered, that's outside of school, is soccer. We've got a great youth soccer program. Must be all that coaching from Doug Winchell. And obviously these others here that we're looking at, we've got a lot of AAU teams in town with basketball and whatnot, and then it's nice just to see those other numbers to see what our students are doing outside of school sports that are offered.
And then for the high school, you'll see that volleyball and soccer are two sports that rank the highest with outside sports, but also swimming. And that's positive because those are helping our programs as well. And so, you know, kind of working with those outside clubs as well.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Back on that
Yeah.
slide you were just showing. You have ballet. Is that what it says?
What we have to do is we have to take whatever OSBI tells us to take. So
Okay.
we ask the question, and so outside sports, that's what 3 people chose ballet as their sport they do outside of the school. And so that would have been the other category that they might do an outside sport. What is it? And so basically with this portion of the quiz that we have is we say, do you do others? And we list them, but in the other category, we say, what other sports or activities do you do? And ballet popped up in that other category that three students obviously chose to do that. So,
And you didn't want it with dance ballet?
we could. The survey, when the results, we just didn't do that.
Okay.
So, but yes, we could, absolutely. So yeah.
And then the next piece we got into was sports that you're interested that are offered at your school, if they're there and available. You know, our section of yes is a little bit small, and we'll talk about that here in the next slide. One thing that we worked on last year, and this was Title IX stuff we'll talk about at the end of the year, but did an interest survey last year to see what sport is it that's out there that we can help kind of balance numbers with. And last year it came back as tennis, and we ended up offering an intramural tennis program at the middle school this year, which was really successful. So we'll again kind of do the same thing with these numbers here.
Yeah, and at the high school, you know, 55% say yes, the sports that we offer are what they want. There's a 44%, and we're going to see some of the no answers and what they want offered in the interest survey, just to see what our students are interested in as well. So we'll see that coming up here.
So the main sports at Lincoln that they're interested in that aren't offered currently at school, obviously there's soccer, swimming and diving, which is a great. Both those programs feed into the high school, and then badminton and bowling are also pretty high for Lincoln students.
Yeah, and like I mentioned before, the survey tells us we have to ask if we offer fencing or if it's an interest. It's an OSBI thing that we have to ask. So that's why you'll see some things on there, lacrosse, ice hockey, that we don't necessarily offer even as clubs here, but we have to ask if they're interested in. So that's why you'll see some different things on those askings here. And for the high school, badminton came in as the highest. Offering that as a sport. Fencing, the next one. Competitive martial arts. You know, I think of risk management issues. Would our risk management group approve of us doing some of these? But those are some things. Ultimate frisbee, things like that. Volleyball came in at 43rd. Bowling was fairly high as well there. It's 105. And so, I mean, I guess our next steps is, you know, we'll meet with Bob about this. We have to submit this report to OSBI to just verify that we did this and go see what interests we need to might be at. But Bob, Justin, and I will be kind of sitting down, going over the data that we received and go from there to see what other interests we could offer. Just like Lincoln Middle School offered intramural tennis, something similar like that. So yeah, that's the survey that we'll be submitting to OSBI with those data results and data points. Any questions?
Was there the comparison between organized sports and intramural?
There isn't the survey that we're required to do only has about 5 questions, so there's no comparative data like that.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's a great idea to do that. But we just have to do with the survey that we're given.
Okay.
So, yeah. Any other questions? No, thanks. Thanks for your support,
Thank
guys.
you very much.
Dan, are you ready for tax rate?
I am.
And I have one more.
Okay.
Thank you. This time of year, we're always interested in seeing how valuation's going throughout the county, and especially as it relates to Pullman School District and our taxing district. So I called over, I think, a week ago and got the new valuation for our taxing district. This is a lot of information that's provided. I think if we can get that up on the screen, it's under the tax report. If we look down at, there we go, thank you. I think if we just skip by all those numbers and go right down to the line 2016, we can see what effects we realized on our tax rates for this fiscal year and this tax year. Our valuation, if we slide right over to the valuation assessed value column, came in at $1,007,184,617, which was a 3.08 increase from the previous tax year of 2015. So when we went out with information to the voters, we said that we were looking at 2% to 4%, if you recall that, and we actually came in a little over 3%. So that was actually good news for what we were forecasting with our numbers. The first column is the gross levy authority. That amount is calculated on the previous year's revenues in federal and state programs with some per pupil inflators and formula adjustment that takes place. That's what we base our tax base on. Our levy, of course, was $5,300,000. Our levy authority at $7,373,000. The difference between the two is how much money is uncollected. And at this particular point in time, we're a little over $2 million that we did not go out to the voters and ask for the voters to provide for our operations. We felt pretty strongly about maintaining the $5,300,000 and maintaining the programs that we had. We were confident we were able to do that and not seek any more money beyond that. So when we look at it, we went out to the voters and asked them when they approved the 2016 maintenance operations levy. Over in that column, the voters approved $3.12. It actually has come in at $2.78. And the bond came in at $2.67, tech levy at 10 cents, for a total of $5.56. And this was about, I think, 6 cents less than what we had anticipated over the last year. So that's good news. When we do this then, and since our voters have approved our maintenance operations levy and our new bond issue that's upcoming, now we're able to go into 2017 through 20 and project what our rate per thousands will be. This is on a 2% increasing valuation. And so we're able to do that knowing that our $5,300,000 for our M&O is constant over those 4 years, with the $200,000 in the tech levy being added in the last 2 years. And this has been well presented to the community, I believe. And also our bond issue, we're looking at 2016, 17, 18, 19, and 20 in this information. When we look at that, I'm really looking at 2017 to see how that turns out for us for what we projected we'd be. And clear over on the right side, you can see the total of what we anticipate to be at a 2% valuation increase. And we're confident that it may well be greater than that in 2017. Our tax rate total is at $5.91. And we told our voters that we would be less than $6. And so that certainly has turned out to be the case based on these projections. So down below you can see the valuation increases over the last few years I've listed, and showing the valuation increases at 2% in the 17 through 20, and then what the debt service on bonds will be over the next 4 years, based on what our anticipation of debt service will be. Of course, that'll change a little bit as we sell bonds in June, and that'll alter some, and then we'll bring that information back to the voters and to the community as we go forward with that. But everything looks good for moving forward. Our anticipation of what our rates per thousand would be is what we thought it would be. So that's always good to see. So that's our tax rate sheets for 2016. Any questions on any of that information? Good. If you have any upcoming, or if any community members have any questions about this sheet, we're always happy to address that. So thank you.
Dan, I always appreciate you putting that together, because that makes it very succinct and very clear. as to
Thank
how
you.
Things are working.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think the voters should be very pleased with your work
Well, thank you.
and our support of you, so.
Oh,
And Diane.
yes, thank you.
And I'm going to back up to construction update. I forgot to open this document because we need to add another "and" to this construction update because we have another project now, a new elementary school. And I just wanted to draw your attention to this draft schedule of bond activities for selling the bond. As you can see, April 6th, we scheduled a special meeting for the board. It's a regularly scheduled work session, but it will have a portion of that will be a special board meeting to act on a resolution. That's a date that our bond broker can be in Pullman and make the presentation to the school board. So, you know, I don't want to overplay it, but the initial estimates from our bond broker looking out at selling bonds is very favorable. The climate for selling bonds, if it stays the way it is right now, we're gonna get a real bargain on the bonds. So we're hoping we get more money than we have to pay for. That doesn't happen very often. But that's literally what could happen with a premium, the premium climate on selling bonds right now. So this is just to kind of give you an idea of what's coming in terms of that process, and let the community know that we're moving forward with that.
Hey, Paul, just so that they know that Dad is D.A. Davidson, you probably know that, and BC is bond counsel. So it took me a couple times to look at it to figure that out, so just to make that clear.
Questions?
It's moving fast.
Yeah. All right, I think I closed that one. And I have a reminder of regional meetings. I think Diane has already signed you up for our regional meeting. If not, I'm going to ask her to sign you up whether you want her to or not.
Shannon or Diane?
You mean Shannon.
No, I'm Shannon, I'm sorry. Yeah. And the one that we're hosting is on March 30th. So we, last year they canceled on us. We were all planning to go, but nobody signed up. So we're going to try it again this year. We want to have everybody there. And then a nice note from Dr. Dunn, ESD superintendent, congratulating the board on the passage of the bond. And that's all I have, unless...
Okay, thank you for those reports, very encouraging. Now that brings us to the next item on our agenda, which is the consent agenda, item number 6. And we use a consent agenda to expedite business at our board meetings, which means we approve all of the items under the consent agenda in one motion. Any member of the board may pull any item from the consent agenda, and that would be acted on separately from the regular consent agenda. And so, is there anything on the consent agenda any board member would like to remove and act on separately? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. I might add that tonight the consent agenda consists of the minutes of our last meeting, a budget status report, expense warrants, record destruction report, new PHS clubs, personnel reports, professional and personnel service contracts, and overnight field trip requests.
And the retirement of our superintendent.
Thank you.
But I didn't pull it, so because
Okay.
I couldn't think of anything nice to say.
Okay, that's under personnel. All right, is there any further comments or questions concerning the consent agenda? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to item number 7 under our action items. It's action items, and we have 2 of those this evening. The first one is the Assistant Director of Special Services position, and to present that is Dr. Maxwell.
Thank you very much. Last week, or not last week, 2 weeks ago, we met. Seems like just yesterday. And I presented to you as part of our future planning and process of educational programming, creating the position of Assistant Director for Special Services. As you know, with our increasing population and the complexity of rules and regulations, this is a position that we would be very helpful for the continued success of our educational programming here in the district, as well as provide much needed relief when we're called to many, many meetings, which I just came from a meeting to this meeting. So put before you and for your consideration this position as an Assistant Director for Special Services.
We've all had an opportunity to look it over in our packets. Are there any comments or questions concerning this position?
Bob, can you give us a recap on the timeline on this position and when it might take effect?
Yes, this would take effect July 1, and so with this position, we would look at posting it and interviewing in the spring for the upcoming school year.
Any other comments or questions?
I move approval of the Assistant Director of Special Services position.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the Assistant Director of Special Services position as it was presented. Are there any further comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of approving the Assistant Director Special Service position as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to the next item under action items, which is B, and change to the academic calendar. And to present that is Dr. Sturm. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
If you recall, we had this discussion at the last board meeting, and we had another emergency closure day. We have no snow days in our calendar, so we're proposing to have the date that was the last Friday, which was June 10th, was a half day, convert that to a full day, move that half day to Monday, June 13th, and then at the same time add back the March 18th professional development day that we had to convert to a school day because of a previous wind storm closure, and convert that, or not convert that, but reschedule that professional day to Tuesday, June 14th for certificated employees.
So would they do professional development or just get paid?
No, it's a lot of the planning was already done for March 18th, and we had to cancel that day for professional development, so it would be, now it would be, they would have to come and participate in that to get paid, yeah.
And we have some vendors that we've contracted with for March 18th, and we're kind of telling them, we think it's going to be the 14th, can you fit us in, so tentatively. So we have some contracts that are in place that we would like to fulfill, so there would be.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions, or discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve rescheduling the canceled March 18th professional
move.
development. Okay.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve rescheduling the canceled March 18th, 2016 Professional Development Day for all certified employees to June 14th. Oh, that's the second motion actually, but we'll take that one first. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? All those in favor of approving the standing motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried. And now I would entertain a motion to approve the conversion of June 10th, 2016 from half-day to full day of school for students and staff and reschedule the current half-day of school to June 13th, 2016.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the conversion of June 10th, 2016 from a half-day to a full school day for all students and staff and to reschedule the current half-day of school to be June 13th, 2016. Any further comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the standing motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. So we have our calendar reset. And hope we don't have to reschedule anything else the rest of this year.
No more snow, please. Or wind.
All right, that concludes our action items for this evening. So we'll go to item number 8 on our agenda, which is discussion items. And the first item under discussion items, letter A, is enrollment, 2016-17 enrollment budget. And the presenter is Executive Director of Support Services, Dan Hornfeld.
Thank you. Here we are again. It seems like we were just here. But the enrollment is important, of course, as you know, when we build the budget for the next fiscal year. The enrollment, the enrollment that we'll use and recommend to the board is the basic block of our foundation building for our budget for the next fiscal year. So it's really important that we spend time on it, do some analysis on it, and bring forward a good recommendation to the board. The Finance Committee met. It was Dean and Carl and Bob and Paul and Diane and I sat down and went through these numbers a couple of times, and we've worked over them in the fiscal office. Basically what we bring to you tonight is our package for enrollment projections and recommendations. If we go to the third page, we can go through a series of cohort projection models. They're statistical models that provide information based on historical analysis. They draw a 4-year weighted conclusion and project into the next fiscal year what the cohort would come up with as a suggestion for enrollment at grade level in the next fiscal year. So the first one we look at is October, and that's actual because we have gone through October. So we use that October to project next year, October. And that information told us that there would be 2,740 students in October of 2016. And so that's a solid number that we use to begin this process of identification of a recommendation to make. The next several pages are made up of what I call mock projections. We take March. We look at October because traditionally it's been the highest enrollment in the year. March is usually the lowest. That's not really the way it works anymore, but we're still staying with October, March, an average for the year, and June as projection milestones for coming together with a recommendation to the school board. So we've got October in here. We have 3 March, 4 projected averages for next year, and 3 Junes. And so do you feel comfortable with the cohort projection models if we do, let's move on to page 14, and we'll put a culmination on this information here shortly. 14 basically is just informational, but what it does is it gives us a current average of our enrollment through January of this year. And as you look at the different grade levels, you can see the numbers that are in those grade levels, all the 200s in the K5s, and what we've realized in growth. Look, grade 3 with 261 FTE in there in January. But basically, why we put this together is to look at what we budgeted and what we're over and under for the fiscal year at that particular time for average. And you can see for grade K through 5, we're 106 over what we anticipated by budget. Grade 6 through 8, 18. And 9 through 12, 60 for a total of 165 FTE greater than what we budgeted for the fiscal year. So it just is an informational piece for us. Any questions on that page? The next page, I'm sorry. The next page is an enrollment analysis that I put together several years ago that what we were trying to do was figure out a way to draw a specific conclusion early in the year of what we think enrollment might be for the particular year we're in. So we came up with a model that's averaged between September and October over 5 years and compared to what the actual FTE amount was for that fiscal year. And so we drew a conclusion through the difference of those 5 years of analysis and then weighted it with the highest weight most recently, of course, over a 5-year period to come up with what we'd anticipate to be the impact on our current year's enrollment over this fiscal year. So we make an analysis that way. So when we anticipate that there would be 2,626 students for the fiscal year 2015-16 by using that analysis of 17 FTE less than the average between September and October, which was 2643. Okay, and so we come up with 2626, which is 156 FTE beyond what our budget was for the year. So that's a way to look at and anticipate FTE for this fiscal year ending at 2626 on the average. It's been fairly consistent. We were off 3 with it last year and 6 the year before, so it just gives us a guide to go by. Any questions on that? The next page is just an enrollment review, and what it does, it looks at fiscal year past and compares cohort projections in October, March, and average to budget and what actual was. So it really is just an informational sheet so that we can do some enrollment tracking and projections based on history, and it helps us that way. It also has a graph that shows what budget was to actual over those years, and you can see the growth over the last few years as we've realized additional enrollment. And then the last page is really the page that puts all this information together. And you can see it's an enrollment information summary. In October 2016 then was the 2740. Average of the March projections, which there were 3 of them together, was 2729. The year average, you can see in the next 4 lines, were different amounts based on what we anticipate this year's average should be of 2626, and then we'd add some to it and take some away from it just so that we could draw a good conclusion about what that projection would be based on those numbers. And you can see 2706, 2712, 2719, 2727 based on those average projections. And then June, I believe, was 3 cohort projection models that combined for an average of 2693. I'm losing my voice. So the average, excuse me, the average of all the projections then was 2,718. And if we throw out the, thank you, I need that, appreciate it. Excuse me. I've been fighting this for a week, and it's Diane gave it to me. She sneezes on all my papers and things like that. But so the average of the projections then of all of those is 2,718. Thank you, Paul. And if we throw out the high and the low, I learned that in college, I don't know why, but it turns out to be 2719, which kind of surprised me, so I did it a couple of times, and it's still 2719. And then the 2015-16 average enrollment through January was 2635. Our budget for this fiscal year was 2470. So when we look at an anticipated projected 15-16 year-end average of 2,626, and then we add to it the 115 that we anticipate in full-day kindergarten for next year, we come up with a number that's right at 2740.
So there would be, if that is, it would be like 230 kindergartners next year?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
And we have 115 twice half-days, or, yeah, for a total of 115
Did you say
FTE.
third grade had 260?
Yeah, it's just crazy. Well, I was looking at, I mean, I'm thinking, you know, usually we're so conservative, I was looking at the jump on this page. Finally saw that, forgot about that full-day kindergarten.
Right.
Makes a
That's
huge difference,
Makes a big difference.
yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I had to look at it a couple of times. In fact, Diana and I were looking at it today, and I was saying, make sure that this looks right to you, and because that's where we're headed with the full-time kindergarten now. So, and that's a good thing for us. We just need to make sure that we calculate it correctly, and
And we have a place to put them.
that's the main part. So our number, and we went through this with the finance committee, turns out to be 2740. Then we look at all the other things, and Carl had come up with a couple, and we talked about, and other considerations you can see are local status of economy and national economy, and how are things doing locally, and growth and stability and consistency, and all those things you need to take into consideration when you look at demographics and those sorts of things that would affect the business that we're operating in. And so they can be debated in any direction, but really things look pretty positive for the national economy and the local economy. And so we see stability out ahead and potential growth. And so the board we'd bring to the board tonight a recommendation from staff and from the finance committee of 2,740 FTE to build our budget on for next fiscal year. And we're open to any comments or considerations that you have. We would come back, I believe it's March 9th, with a recommendation to the board for approval. And then we can get to work on some of the things that we need to do to start that budget process for next year. So, any questions on all that? I know that's quite a bit to put out there.
But no matter what you did, came up with the same numbers, so that's good.
Right.
Whatever you learned in college,
Right.
right.
That's, yeah, that's rare for me, but it worked this time.
Any further comments or questions for Dan?
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. That brings us to item B under section 8 of our agenda, which is the Pullman High School Leadership Class, and to present that is Dr. Maxwell.
Well, thank you very much. I also have Principal Joe Thornton here and Assistant Principal and Activities Director Chris Franklin here as well. If you remember in the past, we've discussed this issue of revamping and bringing back a leadership class due to public feedback, student feedback, looking at that goal of how do we increase students at the high school participating in a related high school activity, whether it's clubs or sports or different venues of school spirit. With that, we've been working with the high school and pursuing a leadership class. And we have a proposal for you now. So we're coming to in alignment with our goal of providing that. This leadership class would be for next year, obviously. And we had a presentation at our last Curriculum Advisory Council where Aaron Willey presented leadership class curriculum, which the CAC unanimously supported, and we'll recommend that we bring that forward to the school board. Again, you can see that there are a variety of leadership components that are designed into this class. Really, the participation in activities outside the school day would be expected. That's one of the items that we clearly found through our research that was needed. And part of that would be that the course would be open to freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and of course seniors, and all ASB executive officers, not all the officers, just the executive officers, we would recommend be required to take this course. This course would be offered as an elective credit, and we're looking at the possibility of also combining this as a CTE credit in project management. One of the reasons for, I think, the executive officers being having to be part of that is in the past, and I know even this year, through some anecdotal stories of not having people show up at leadership, the leadership showing up at some of these activities, and then some of the junior officers or other folks having to try to pick up the pieces of delivering some of the activities. And so this is something that I think is really critical. I also know it could be possibly a little controversial with people that may want to serve, but I truly think if you're going to be a leader and be a leader at the high school, you need to be present to be a leader, and trying to be a leader from afar, I think has really been problematic for some of our events. Not all of them, but some of them, it's definitely been an impact. I also have Chris and Joe here. They may want to add, or if you have specific questions, I've also asked them to be here because they put in the lion's share of the work in designing this course and the specific elements. So if you have questions, we'll be happy to try to answer those at this point. Or comments, if you don't have questions.
I don't have a question. I mean, my comment would be graduation requirements have increased recently. So there are more and more requirements and fewer electives. So a student would potentially have to choose between participating in orchestra or some other music ensemble and being involved in as an executive position. An athlete wouldn't have to make that choice, but a musician would. And that seems problematic to me. And you know, if we've had ASBs who've managed to do this these decades and didn't need a leadership class, I think the class sounds great. I object to it being required.
And that's one of the reasons,
Yep.
if you don't mind me speaking,
Go ahead.
that's one of the reasons why if we created a CTE credit, that would fulfill that CTE credit requirement for graduation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take away one of their orchestra electives. But we created the CT, which is already a requirement, they fulfill that piece.
Yeah. And I know that that's something that all three of us have had also discussions on, that the requirement for the executive officers. Also, I think though it also is a choice, and sometimes we have to make hard choices in life and we're not able to do everything we want to do.
But
although
if it wasn't a choice until 2016, why are people suddenly being required to make that choice?
And they could still run for like class office, a senior class office, junior class officer.
Yeah.
Just the exec board that kind of oversees our ASB is just, we need to provide that leadership skills to them for that. So that would be, you know, they could still, if they wanted just to not be in the class, they could still run for junior class president or senior class president and go from there.
So we're trying to make it fit, but it's difficult, as you know, with a high school schedule, and I think also zero period. There's also some pieces with that as well that limit some students' choices to certain classes. So it's an ongoing, I think, process that we're trying to figure out a way that we can meet everyone's needs, but it's really hard, and I think it does have an impact, but we want to bring this recommendation to you for discussion and your consideration. And I know it's not necessarily perfect, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
So this class would be the ones in charge of assemblies and things like that. So would they be overseeing all assemblies?
Well, Joe, I'll let,
Typically, the Veterans Day Assembly has been organized by administration,
Okay.
but the MLK Assembly has been organized by student body, and then PEP assemblies are organized by student body.
But this would be kind of overseen by the leadership class?
correct.
Assembly, so there's a little more control over content and.
And even like Spear Week ideas, those type of things. Homecoming dances, Sadie Hopkins, prom, those type of things, to be overseen by those people in this class.
Well, I think, yeah, there is a need for a little more oversight, I think, rather than letting kids run amok. When my sons were here, they both were in the leadership class, and it was a good class for them.
I support the idea of a class.
I know, it's just taking up the
Yeah.
credit.
Just one more requirement that we're making people do.
Bob, what would you anticipate in terms of teachers for this class? Would it be team taught or organized under one person? Or
Right now, I think the plan is to have it organized under one person. That'd be one class period.
okay.
And the curriculum is quite an extensive curriculum, and I think really this is just kind of a highlight that you see, but I think it's something that would really help our students in that leadership capacity and get a more structured and comprehensive leadership.
If someone
Instruction.
took it when they were a freshman or sophomore for that experience, and then later in their senior year chose to be an executive officer where it was again required, would they receive credit again for taking it because they were required?
Wouldn't you only have to take it once?
I think we would
That's
only,
something that, we definitely consider taking it once, and, we can modify that if we need to.
Yeah.
It was a great question.
that is a good question, and that's something that I didn't necessarily think about in our discussion, but, to make them take it twice, I don't think would necessarily be appropriate, so there may be some caveats that we could add into that.
And what is the curriculum? Is there a text, or, I know when my kids took it, it was that Stephen Covey.
I don't recall being a specific text, but it was more of a compilation of several leadership.
The AWSP, Washington Association for School Principals, has a curriculum for this, and that's what we use. It's one that's assigned by the School Principals Association. So,
Well, as my kid kept telling me I was making withdrawals on his emotional bank account, and I just wanted to smack him.
So being required, though, wouldn't you have to have several sections of this class?
I believe that we'd be able to incorporate, because it would only be a few that would actually be required, and I think through the scheduling, we'll be able to handle it, because that was one of the questions I asked. Would one class going to be enough to fit everyone in?
Right.
I could possibly see this class growing as well, but I think we won't know till we offer it and go through seeing how many kids would sign up for it. Chris?
and for the required people, we only have, I think, 6 elected executive officers. So for the required piece, it's only 6 chiefs. The rest of them would be optional. And Erin Willie has kind of taken a poll of who would want to do it, and she's got about 35 kids that want to either run for an executive position or sign up for the class. So that's kind of an informal poll that she did. The requirement piece would only be for about 5 to 6 kids.
Is there some overlap between this and what agricultural education classes have as far as teaching parliamentary procedure and public speaking and?
I think some of those elements are similar. I'd have to look at and kind of side by side put those two together to give specific. Obviously, some would be very similar.
Yeah.
Some might be a little bit different as far as in this leadership portion with maybe the management of events and activities and presentations.
Further comments or questions, discussion?
Be interesting.
All right. Well, if you do have further questions, feel free to contact myself or Chris or Joe, and we'd be happy to answer. And you've given us some good questions that we hadn't necessarily thought about, so it'll give us something to talk about, so appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob. Much appreciated. That brings us to the end of our discussion items for this evening. What's left on the agenda are informational items, which you can look at, which includes administrative requirement updates, the board calendar, and current enrollment figures. Current FTEs is 2,648.7 students. Other than that, that concludes, unless somebody has something that we missed. If not, I would entertain a motion to move into a closed session. What's the pleasure of the board?
I move that we recess into a closed session.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we recess our regular meeting and move into a closed session for the purpose of evaluation of personnel and collective bargaining. It should last no longer than, I think, you think 30 minutes?
30 minutes.
30 minutes, and there will be no decisions made. Those have to come back in an open public meeting, and if there are any things that we will make a decision on, it'll be at our next meeting. So, all those in favor of recessing our regular meeting and moving into a closed meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried, so we will recess until we are ready to move into the closed meeting. So anyone that would like to ask questions are welcome to come up and do so.